No. Okay, Maggie, good afternoon. How are you today?
Hi, Pavel. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. It's a sunny afternoon here in London. Today for our conversation, we connected with you about a month ago, and we had a
Mm-hmm.
very interesting conversation about psychology, about the mindset in businesses, about entrepreneurship, and about how can organizations and business leaders can better connect with their sense of purpose and how this can
Mm-hmm.
really help them to achieve greater results. So I thought it would be interesting for us to continue this conversation and to record
Mm-hmm.
it for the benefit of others, because I think there's so much that we have to share in this field.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it'll be great to look at that, really. So shall I talk about the purpose to start with, or should we kind of tell the audience a bit more about the various areas we focus on?
Yeah, perhaps first off, you could just tell a bit about yourself and what do you do?
Mm-hmm. So, as Pavel said, I'm Maggie Sarfo, and I'm a business and personal growth consultant. And a big passion of mine is about exploring new ways of being, new ways of leading, new ways of growing our businesses. A background is about 18 years in business consulting, sales and sales leadership. And when I transitioned from my corporate role about 4 years ago, I quickly realized that a lot of my clients didn't want me to be only a growth consultant. They wanted me to be kind of an executive mentor, stroke personal growth person as well. So that's how I have evolved, and I'm always really excited to be having these kind of conversations. So here we are.
Yeah,
Do you want to tell us a bit about you as well, for the sake of our audiences, so they know what to expect?
yeah, thanks, Maggie. So my name is Pavel Golenistsev. I am an organizational psychologist. I have
Mm-hmm.
worked in the corporate world for several years, where I was helping businesses to make sure that they are finding, developing, engaging, and retaining their best employees, and that they're making sure that everyone can be at their best at work. I
Mm-hmm.
specialize specifically on employee engagement, that is making
Mm-hmm.
sure that companies are measuring effectively how their people are feeling and that they understand using behavioral psychology insights what they can do to improve their employee experience. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, I have my own company called Business Purpose. What I focus on is helping companies make sure that they can create great company cultures by enabling their teams, their leaders better through coaching and through understanding how they can use people analytics to really improve employee experience. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I really do this is the simple thought that most of us, we do spend at least 1/3 of our lives at work. And what I really want to make sure is that we use the insights we have from psychology, from
Mm-hmm.
data, and from organic conversations about mindset to really make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we have the best possible experience at work.
Yeah, amazing.
So much we have to discuss, but I think something that really stands out for both of us, like just with like the first minutes in our conversation on when we look at each other's profile, is the
Mm-hmm.
word purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose, well-being, experience,
Mm-hmm.
transformation. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Business purpose and personal purpose. What does it mean for you?
So it's such a great question, and I think increasingly we are all realizing the importance of the word purpose in most contexts. For me, personal purpose is my way of being. I think when I'm doing something and I am on purpose, I feel very connected to what I'm doing. It doesn't feel laborious. It doesn't feel like it's work. It feels like this is what I want to do. This is what I'm here to do. This is so in sync with me. So for me, purpose is who I am, is the way I am. That's how I express myself, but it's also how I show myself in the world, how I live a more meaningful life for myself and for others. And I think it's really connected to what we choose to do and also to work. So business purpose, when I speak to some of my clients, or even for my own business, I always look at those deeper questions that sometimes when we skip, we would have to come back to address in order to sell as a business. And so business purpose would be for business leaders to start to ask the question, why are we here? Why are we a business? What do we exist for? How do we serve both our internal customers, which is the employees, and other internal stakeholders, and how do we serve others in terms of our customers and external stakeholders? It's also about asking those questions about what need do we fulfill? You know, what is the challenge that other people are need answers to, and how do we actually fulfill that need for them? And then in the bigger picture, it becomes who are we and why are we here, and what do we mean to other people? And I think it's also connected to brand. And as time goes on, if others are able to hear a business name and say something that shows that they know the purpose or the mission or the vision of that business, then I think we're doing a great job in terms of establishing the business purpose. I also feel that employees within an organization need to be connected with their business and the purpose of the business. Increasingly, I am finding a lot of people choosing to really feel connected or aligned with the business before they go and work for them. On a level, at least, there is the do in terms of what we do at work, but you know, the ethos of the business need to connect with us, and we need to feel that the people around us are kind of moving in a good direction with us. It doesn't mean there are no disagreements in the work environment, but it does mean that we have something that we all hold up to, and it comes in different aspects. But I think I'm gonna stop here and see how it goes.
Maggie, absolutely. We are definitely on the same page about the importance of purpose and what it really means for individuals and for organizations. I guess to add to that, like the way I often talk about the importance of purpose is that that's something that helps us to stay on track, that helps us to stay focused. It's like life can be quite a complex, messy thing to navigate. Individuals, for businesses, there's so much that we don't know, and that we don't know that we don't know. There is so much out there to figure out. There's so many things that can go not as planned, and our sense of purpose, that statement, that's who I am, or that's who we are as an organization. It's something that is helping us to stay on track.
Yes.
In a way, it's like a guiding star, perhaps, or
it is.
Or the way I often describe it when I talk about purpose, it's like if we have, say, a map in front of us. We have a map, and it's showing us terrain, like of a land that we're about to cross. All those different tactics, like different perhaps marketing techniques, or say personal habits, in case of individual development or individuals. That's the gear one is taking on the journey to get from one place to another on the map in that terrain. Strategy is figuring out how they're going to do that. Are they going to go through the forest, or try to cross the swamp, go across the mountains, all of those things. Now, purpose is that little cross on the map, that objective, where they're actually going, something that will help them to tell. Whichever way they're taking, sometimes you have to keep going, even though it's tough. Sometimes you have to backtrack and reevaluate where you're going. But purpose is that cross on the map that will help you to stay on track. Perhaps it's your compass that will help you to know that's where I'm going, despite all the challenges.
And I hear people refer to it as the North Star, you know, that thing that helps you keep the main thing that gives you that sense of direction, that you are on track. And when things don't quite go the way we want it to go, at least we know that the real reason why we're doing what we're doing is that, and we keep that as the focus. And as I mentioned before, the first time I came across the word sense of purpose was when I was interviewing for an organization called Gartner. And for them, they earlier on recognized the importance of having a sense of purpose, especially for their sales teams, because then they know that when it gets challenging, when sales people are not getting their targets and they feel really down, then they can wake them back up with their sense of purpose. And so it was about really understanding the sense of purpose of the person before they get admitted into the organization, especially the sales organization. And it could be anything. So, I mean, we're all human, right? So sometimes we might look at purpose as that thing, but how about if it was kind of our day to day? Why do we do this? And so people come up with this being something like, in the next 3 years, I want to get on the property ladder. I want to buy this 5-bedroom house along this coast, blah, blah, blah. And for some people, that was their sense of purpose that was connected to the role that they were being interviewed for. And they would then align it to what is happening within their roles, their targets and everything to be able to achieve that. So it's really powerful, and we can take it on different levels, but it has to be meaningful to the person and they have to own it. And as they own it, then you connect it to the business purpose as well, and you find a way of aligning it, and that kind of helps everyone to be happy, at least, or to keep focused.
Maggie, yes, absolutely. And I think, like, right now when we're talking about it, we're sort of making a distinction between individual sense of purpose and organizational purpose. But in the end of the day, it's all about what really connects for every single individual, for that person. And all of us have, we all look at world through our own lenses of experiences, our personal histories. We interpret the reality differently, but we all can agree that there are some things that are really important to us as human beings. When you were talking about the importance of having this purpose in business, it actually reminded me of a story I had with one of my career coaching clients, someone who wanted to move into a senior leadership position. And something that we spent a lot of time on exploring is not like, what do you do to get into that position, but actually, what are your values? What are your beliefs? What are some of the things that you really would never compromise on? And let's make sure that we get clear on that, so that you can be not the sort of leader that, like, you read in a leadership book and think, this person did that, that, and that, and now they're an inspiring leader. But how do you find your own style, your own way of being as a person, as a leader, as an organization? And knowing that, what is it that you want to do for that person? It was empowering others, mentoring others more effectively. Now, what is it that you can do to be really living your values, to be empowering others more effectively? How can you be the sort of leader that, and the sort of mentor that you wish you had yourself when you were at the earlier stages in your career? And what can you do about it? And how you can be that organization that is really making the world a better place? And then how can you actually authentically, not just on the PR level, connect with that, and then make sure that others know it, believe it, and that you actually live those values.
No, it's so important, and what you said here actually has so many different strands that are so crucial to this topic. So, for instance, a colleague of mine, we're currently putting together a 2-year program for the leaders of a financial services organization, and they wanted us to look at the softer elements. We call it soft, but now we really recognizing that these are the stronger elements that we need to hone in if we want leaders to be their best and to lead the best organizations and for organizations to grow. And they wanted us to really look at what it takes, from that kind of emotional intelligence, but purpose, and kind of looking at the well-being elements that connect them as opposed to the learned skills. And so sometimes I talk about the innate skills and the learned skills, and because in a lot of our normal systems we have kind of almost relegated some of these innate skills it feels like now is the time to go and bring them back in and kind of guide people to tap into that more and more, because that is actually what makes them the most powerful leaders that we can have. So I say that because one of the things we're looking at is the underlying beliefs behind the individual leader's leadership style. And once you look at the underlying beliefs and values and maybe where their strengths are and the areas that need improvement, and then you help them to understand that, but also help them understand how this impacts their interaction with others from the perspective of, you know, the areas that they need to bring into balance to help them be a better leader. It then helps them really understand the person they're dealing with and also empower them. And the true leaders are not the leaders who tell people you have to do this and still have to watch them do it. The true leaders are leaders who are so solid within themselves, because as you said, they are authentically true to themselves. And it's because they're connected to the sense of purpose within them, and they are connected to the purpose of the organization. And so the vision is so clear, and because they are true to themselves, and the communication comes out so clear, and then it's so easy for others to follow their lead in a way, because they also buy into this vision that, you know, he or she is painting for them. They see their contribution to this big vision. They see their own individual sense of purpose, however it connects with the organization, and they look at it. Sometimes I call it a mothership. So they look at their role within the mothership, and, you know, regardless of who is the pilot, who is the base, they all recognize, the people within the organization all recognize their little parts and the bigger parts that they play in making sure that the mothership is sailing off into this beautiful place and they're all going together.
That's a very nice way to describe it, Maggie. And indeed, it's about like, we as humans, we were created to work as a society, to work as a team towards something. Some of us like to work a bit more on our own, some of us like to be more on the team, and that's fine. But in the end of the day, it's so important for all of us to feel that we are part of something bigger, working together towards something. And if for some it's making more money, well, fair enough. We all have different situations, different experiences, different stories, different drivers. That's totally fine. But knowing what that is, and for a leader to know how they can understand what are the values, what are the personal aspirations, what are the individual purposes of different people on their team, and how they can bring it together and create it as a catalyst for their one goal where the business needs to go. That is so important. And for a leader to know that, that's when we talk about executive presence, about knowing, having that sort of presence. That's when we use words like inspirational leadership, like gravitas. It's being able to bring it all together and having that awareness, as you say, awareness of yourself, using it to inspire others to be leaders in their own field themselves.
Absolutely. And gravitas and executive presence and all of these elements is the kind of things that we don't see, but I guess we feel. And when you have a great leader, you do know, even if they don't say much, you do know. And I think for the future of leadership, for the future of best-in-class organizations, we are looking for those type of leaders who are able to increasingly work on themselves. And as they do, they also share elements of what is important for others to know. But what happens is the rest of the team actually, because they can feel it, then they also do their part. And a big part of my work is about self-leadership, and how once we all take individual responsibility for who we are and becoming our best selves, even as we come into the organizations, you know, each of us knowing and accepting our role within the organization and doing our best, it's so much easier for us to be moving in the right direction. And as I keep saying, it doesn't mean that there are no disagreements. It just means that we are able to come together and keep the main thing, and this cross that we're all heading towards is there. And for instance, yesterday, on Wednesday, I was speaking to a group of women leaders who are in the aviation industry, and we discussed self-leadership and these kind of elements, especially in these times, because everyone has so much on their own plate. And so when we look at how we are coming into the workplace and making sure that our individual issues are being looked after from an emotional well-being perspective, as well as bringing the purpose back into what we do and how that fits into the organization and how that plays into the leadership level, it's very different for everybody now. It's very, very different. The world it has changed in such a way that it affects different people in different ways. But what really keeps us, I want to say in check, but probably not the best word, what keeps us kind of still authentic to ourselves and being in a happy place and keeping the main thing and getting the results and achieving the goals we're looking to achieve as individuals and as organization, is that in the sense of purpose within us, and how we look at a leader, and the leader is authentic enough for us to say, okay, in that case, I am willing to carry on and contribute to what it takes for us to become the best organization that we're building together.
Absolutely. It is so much about helping organizations, helping people on one's team to become the better versions of themselves. And how can a leader help them to uncover that? How can a leader perhaps be a more effective mentor, a more effective coach, and be someone who is helping others to uncover the best parts of themselves. Everyone on the team has different areas of expertise, different drivers, different priorities. They're all working on different areas of the business. But how can the leader help everyone uncover what is it that they need to do, while also sometimes, I guess, shaping individual energies more to be more aligned with the overall organizational purpose and the benefit and the collective benefit, but also making sure that there's this greater sense of purpose for individual, for the business, and for the entire society. I think something that's very important here is making sure that leaders know how to be effective coaches and mentors, that they know how to help others uncover that within themselves, that a leader can come into the room and say, those are our objectives, this is our strategy, but how do you feel about it? What about our vision really makes you passionate? And how can we work together to make sure that your passion and your vision and your personal drivers are aligned with the direction of this business and where we need to be at the moment?
I say increasingly coaching and mentoring are becoming the top. So there was a research that came out towards the end of last year that said, so a research done by, I'll have to come back to you on that, but it was done by an organization called the Sales Enablement Society, but they commissioned another organization to do this, which is kind of a research organization. But it's really interesting to see how coaching is coming on top in terms of what the top trends or the top needs of leaders at the moment. And coaching, if I remember correctly, that research was talking about coaching being number 4. And it's really important for us to recognize that coaching is increasingly becoming the most important way of impacting people to kind of embrace the right behaviors in the workplace to be successful for themselves and for others as well. And I think increasingly we are also recognizing that not one size fits all. And so how you're describing it, you know, from the perspective of a leader taking time to understand the people in their teams and then recognizing where each of them is most alive, and then connecting that to the organization, and then making sure that they bring this to the table. And because when you recognize where someone is alive and you enable them to tap into it as well, you know, the sky's the limit for them, because that element comes to them easy, then they can easily build on that, compared to something that is not very natural to them, and you telling them to be that, and on top of that take it to the next level. If we're able to know people to the extent that we know where the biggest strengths are, and we encourage them to build on those strengths, then they make it a far bigger contribution. They also feel very valued, they also feel very listened to, and from that perspective they develop quicker, they develop faster, and they contribute to the organizations much quicker as well. And I think as more and more leaders recognize that need to do their own self-coaching, find an external coach sometimes, because, and it's with everything, when we are part of the same crew, then we see things almost from the same level as everyone. And so sometimes getting a third party perspective into the organization becomes really, really crucial, because that person has seen similar leaders like you in maybe similar environment, so they can bring insights into the table, but they can also see what perhaps you are not seeing, because you know the adage that says you can't see the wood for the trees, because you are so into it, you know, this is your baby, this project is your baby, and so you won't see everything that someone with an objective pair of eyes might see. So the more leaders take their own self-leadership responsibility to do their personal development work, as well as get some external insight to kind of view them and see what they can see, and then I think this develops leaders quicker, but it also empowers them to look at things from within their teams from perspectives that they probably didn't look at before. And the more we do that, the more we are able to bring out the best in people, and the people then get that sense of being valued, that sense of being listened to, that sense of having a voice, because they know the voice would be heard if they chose to use it. Otherwise, we just lose the talent in our teams, because they feel that whatever they say don't go anywhere, so there's no point doing it. But also, I think that external perspective into the mix actually encourages innovation, new ways of bringing ideas to the table. But increasingly, I would 100% say that as companies start embracing coaching as a way of developing our teams, rather than our traditional training, depending on what needs to be done, yes, maybe the larger one-size-fits-all training forums would work, but increasingly those who are starting to employ coaching and mentoring systems as part of their development portfolio tend to really shift their cultures in the direction that they really want, in faster ways as well, and get more of the results they're looking for.
Maggie, yes, absolutely. Spot on. It's like how every individual at a different stage in their life can benefit from having a coach, because we cannot step out of our own mind. We cannot look at ourselves from outside. So can every organization can benefit from a coach, from a consultant, from a third party perspective coming in. And thinking organizational development, it's often the metaphor of a mirror is often used. The third-party consultant being that sort of person holding the mirror and showing the organization it's pretty. Sometimes possibly ugly image, and all the different things, because, well, like mirrors, like we cannot see what's out there on, like, on our nose, right? Until we see our own
You can.
until we see our own reflection. Someone holds a mirror for us and says, look, but everyone else can see it. We cannot. Same with the organizations. It can be so obvious, but you have been in this culture for such a long time. It's like the story of the two fish are swimming in the pond, and the big fish is asking them, hey, how's the water? They're like, what's he talking about? Fish doesn't realize that they're in the water. People don't realize when they're in one and same culture. And it's so important to have that perspective, to understand there are things that we start taking for granted when we have been for too long in one culture. Someone from outside can actually help us see, why is it actually like that? People who have been in one and same culture for too long, they start thinking, oh, that's just how the world of work is, that's how everything is. That's how the rest of my working life is going to be like. But no, there are so many different ways of doing things, so many different cultures, so many different things of seeing oneself and living a life as an individual and doing business as an organization. And it's so helpful to have someone who can come in and say, that's actually not really working in your favor. Let's look at this and see what we can change about that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like the analogy of the mirror. And as you were talking, I keep nodding, but also seeing another type of mirror. And this is the internal mirror. So the internal mirror is me as a leader speaking to you, or even coaching you. The way you are reacting towards me, or behaving towards me in a way, is a mirror. And so as we work together, and as we kind of evolve this relationship between the coach or the leader and, you know, the team member, what you tend to see is, as they make progress, this mirror tends to shift in the right direction, because, as I said before, the true leader is the one that says something, or even does not say something, but the team knows exactly what to do. Again, that is a form of a mirror. It's an internal mirror which says, we are in sync, right? We get each other. And I think that is another way of looking at whether, you know, what we're doing is working or not working. But again, I always see this coaching, mentoring scenario as a two-way learning street. I always learn from my clients and vice versa. And I say that to them all the time. Because, again, they help us see perspectives that we may have missed, and vice versa.
Yes, that's very true. That's been the same experience for me. When I'm coaching someone, I understand about, like, when we coach someone, we understand about what are their perspectives, and that's also one of the reasons why it's so important to have a coaching culture in a business, because a leader can benefit so much from understanding what are the different perspectives and experiences of other people. And something you mentioned there, Maggie, I thought was very interesting about sort of adjusting the mirror all the time and making sure that it has this correct sort of angle. I think this brings us very nicely back to the beginning of our conversation, when we were talking about adjusting one's path, knowing where you're going, but then adjusting according to the purpose. And I think this really sort of creates this rounded theme of having the support you need to be adjusting yourself on the path, and knowing what your path is and what your purpose is, so that you can adjust in accordance to your purpose, or perhaps sometimes adjust your understanding of what your purpose is, but then getting that support so that you can have a better life as an individual, so that you can serve your customers and your team in the best possible way and enjoy the experience in the meantime.
No, it's so important for these adjustments. And you can tell that you're actually moving from one stage to another stage. And I think a big part of that comes from the awareness. When we know what good feels like, then as we go off path, we can actually feel that we're actually going off path as well and going, I don't like this direction, or there is something that is off on my path or on our path as a team. And even if you can't pinpoint it straight away, you know that it doesn't feel right. And then you go to work again to figure out what it takes for you to all feel on the path again. And again, elements of this come back to the softer elements that we perhaps in the past did not put too much attention to. So for instance, if a team is performing really well, they've got the numbers and the outcomes and all the KPIs being ticked, but they are not happy, and that is not a team on the right path. That is not a team on purpose. And it has to, the results and the feeling and everything has to match each other, because that is when we know that we are on the path, and you feel it and I feel it. So yeah. And then we see the results as well mirroring that.
Absolutely, Maggie. And I think this is such a nice way to conclude what we're saying and this conversation, really, because like all of us, we have this internal guide, internal sense of there's something in the air, there's something in the energy when we feel someone has this presence and gravitas, or when something isn't quite right in the business, in a conversation, in one's own mind. And that's when we may need that mirror. We need to adjust something. We need to perhaps have more clarity about where our sensitivity is. But we all have that internal mechanism to understand if we are really being on purpose and what we can do about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, agree.
Maggie, it's such a pleasure to speak with you about it. Can you please share with those who are listening to us, how can they best get in touch with you?
So I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you for the opportunity, Pavel. To get in touch with me, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Maggie Sarfo on LinkedIn, but also my website is merisconsult.com. So that's MERES consult.com. And that's where you see me hanging out and talking about these topics. I do have a blog, which is simply maggiesarfo.com. And that's where I also share my opinions and experiences around these exciting topics that we're talking about today.
Yeah. Maggie, thank you so much for this conversation, for sharing this. As for me, I can be contacted also on LinkedIn. My name is Pavel Golenistsev. We will make sure to add Maggie's and my contact details to accompany this recording. And I can also be reached through my website, businesspurposecoaching.com. Maggie, great connecting with you. Thank you everyone for listening and have a great day.
Thank you.